Travel to a different world with the gluttonous system. Alan quickly grasped a simple truth. If you want to become stronger, you have to eat billions more. Hereby declare. The protagonist of this book is a violent flow sorcerer, mainly engaged in melee combat, supplemented by casting spells, and punches to destroy everything. Book Friend Group 331483578 Keywords of the novel. Taotie Warlock No Pop-Ups, Taotie Warlock TXT Complete Collection Download, Taotie Warlock Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Taotie System. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Taotie System. Alan. Wake up quickly. The cold touch on the forehead. The call of the girl by the ear. Wake him up from his slumber. What caught my eye was a concerned pretty face. The girl wearing an apron, holding a wet towel in her hand, is helping him wipe sweat. Sister, the boy said subconsciously. The girl looked surprised. You kid. Don't you usually just call my name directly? It feels so strange to suddenly be so polite. The boy pursed his lips and avoided Kelly's gaze. To be precise, he is not Kelly's brother Alan Panthers, but a soul traveler from Earth. When Alan was unconscious and on the brink of death, the spirit of the traveler occupied his physical body, merging with the memories of the original owner, only to find out that he lived in a magical world of swords and magic. As soon as I went upstairs, I saw you sleeping on the floor, sweating profusely and looking ugly. What's wrong with you? My sister asked. I feel a bit dizzy. It's already much better. Did you eat something unclean? No. The boy suddenly thought of something. In the afternoon, I went to the circus to watch a performance and ate the candy given by the clown. On the way back, I felt dizzy. In Alan's original memory, besides dizziness, he felt weak all over and couldn't catch his breath. He insisted on climbing upstairs and then fainted on the floor. From the symptoms, it is mostly due to being poisoned. I told you a long time ago not to eat randomly. You idiot. Sooner or later, you will die from the problem of greediness. Kelly scolded her younger brother, wring out the wet towel and wiping his face until his complexion improved before feeling relieved. I need to go downstairs to the kitchen to help. Take a break first, and if your health is not important, come down to eat. Good. Watching his sister go downstairs, the boy took out candy packaging paper from his pocket, opened it, and carefully fanned himself, letting the airflow blow over the residual candy scent on the packaging paper. He first smelled a faint sweet fragrance. Immediately after, a strange prompt sound suddenly appeared in my mind. DD. Detected second-order toxin. Insufficient samples, unable to identify. What's going on? Alan was taken aback and looked around cautiously. There are no computers, mobile phones, or devices capable of producing electronic synthesizers nearby, and in this magical world of swords and magic, such precision instruments should not exist at all. So the question is, what exactly is the prompt sound that just echoed in my mind? As if to answer his question, a glowing screen slowly unfolded in front of him, resembling the interface of a VR game, with a few lines of text listed on it. After calming down his excitement for a moment, Alan was immediately drawn to those words. Taotie System, Status. Mild poisoning, weakness, attributes. Physical 15, Agility 15, Spirit 18 Potential. 0 point Special Ability. Resistance to pathogens and toxins, Level 1, Genealogy. Human, close to pure blood, ogres, about 5%, beastly humans, less than or equal to 1%, others, ignored, recipe guide. Not yet obtained. While reading, a large amount of information came to Alan's mind, all of which were explanations made by the gluttonous system, for each data item. The gluttonous system seems to be a special device bound to one's own soul, with the main function being to digitize one's own state, just like a character in a game. For example, attribute data refers to a comprehensive rating of physical and mental intensity. The reference standard is for adult humans in this world, with an average attribute of 10 points. The original owner of this body, Alan Panthers, is only 12 years old and has higher physical and agile attributes than most adults, possibly related to his special bloodline. Spiritual attributes are a comprehensive reflection of factors such as intelligence, perception, spirituality, and willpower. 18 spiritual attributes are almost the upper limit that ordinary humans can reach. Alan didn't originally have such high spiritual attributes, mainly because he fused the soul of an adult from a different world, which is equivalent to living an extra life. There is another data called potential, and the current number of points is 0. It is not yet known what its purpose is. As for the toxic state, Alan tried to recall the memories of this body. Today is Sunday. In the afternoon, he and a group of classmates went to the outskirts of the city to watch a circus performance. The circus ticket seller said that customers under the age of 16 can draw a prize when buying tickets. Alan won the third prize and received a beautifully packaged lollipop. At that time, he still felt lucky and watched the circus performance with a sweet lollipop in his mouth. However, after eating the candy, for some reason, I felt dizzy and couldn't help but yawn. He felt uncomfortable and hurriedly left the circus. Struggling back home, he collapsed on the floor, unable to sleep. From the prompts of the gluttony system, the so-called lottery is just a cover-up, with the aim of delivering candy mixed with drugs to children's hands. From this, it can be seen that the circus is likely to also engage in the business of abducting children. Fortunately, they managed to escape in time. Before traveling, Alan underwent general anesthesia surgery and signed a risk awareness letter. Of course I know, improper use of anesthetic drugs can have fatal consequences. Thinking of this, Alan couldn't help but feel a wave of fear. The experience of being abducted this time can also be considered a blessing in disguise for him. Not only did it awaken the gluttony system, but it also acquired a special ability called virus resistance. As the name suggests, it is the resistance to harmful substances such as bacteria and toxins. Alan now has level 1 virus resistance, immunity to level 1 viruses, and stronger resistance to higher order viruses. In addition, the system also provides thoughtful prompts. Exposure to various viruses can promote the growth of virus resistance, and once accumulated to a certain stage, the resistance level can be improved. Good guy. Isn't this just like accumulating experience points and upgrading in the game? Alan rubbed his hands excitedly. Suddenly thinking of something, I quickly ran to the mirror. The young man's figure was reflected in the mirror, with a beautiful linen short hair. The childish face has regained its color. The original owner of this body, who was not very old, developed rapidly. At the age of only 12, he is 1.75 meters tall. The sturdy body with a tiger back and a bare waist, the face with thick eyebrows and big eyes, and the clear eyes of a baby, all exude a temperament of a newborn calf not afraid of tigers. Or to put it more bluntly, it doesn't look very smart. This is better. The young man in the mirror, his lips slightly raised. As a traveler, he really likes the illusion created by this body, which can make people let go of their guard. To become a qualified old pussy, the prerequisite is not to let others overestimate your intelligence level. Seeing this honest face, no one can imagine that he possesses a spiritual attribute of up to 18 points. In the body of this simple young man, there is hidden the soul of an adult from a different world. More importantly, the system interface is not reflected in the mirror. Alan breathed a sigh of relief. As he expected, no one except himself was aware of the existence of the gluttony system. At this moment, the restaurant downstairs heard the energetic shout of Sister Kelly. Alan! If you don't come downstairs to eat again, believe it or not, I'll beat you up. The new book is starting, please vote in support. Thank you so much. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Sisters and Brothers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Sisters and Brothers. Alan Panthers runs a small tavern at home. My father is a brewer, and my mother is the best cook in the town. My sister also comes to the tavern to help after school. Kelly Panthers is 1 year older than her younger brother Alan. The white oval face is adorned with a few playful freckles, with large and lively eyes, and linen hair tied into a long braid. A tall and plump figure may not be in line with the general impression of a beautiful girl among the public. But in Alan's eyes, there is no doubt that her sister is the most beautiful and powerful girl on this street. From childhood to adulthood, Kelly has used her fists to discipline Ellen, but outside, anyone who dares to bully her brother will definitely make her cry. Alan went downstairs to the restaurant. My parents are still busy working in the tavern ahead, and dinner was prepared by my sister Kelly. Kelly's craftsmanship is decent, not much worse than her mother's. Alan sat at the dining table. Just as he smelled the aroma of the food, he received a series of system prompts. Didi, discovering common ingredients. Rye bread. Pork sausage. Onions. Cheese. Cream mushroom soup. Caramel pudding. It turns out that there is no need to actually eat it, and ingredients can also be identified through touch and smell. The built.in ingredient guidebook of the system will automatically record the food that Alan has come into contact with, identifying its nutrients and toxicity. Kelly sat across from the dining table, picking up her own pan-fried sausages and placing them on her younger brother's plate. Boys should eat more meat and grow tall and strong. You also eat meat, Alan said to his sister. Kelly shook her head with a smile and said, Sister loves you, she can't bear to eat meat, it's all for you. Do you think I'll be moved? Alan sneered, what you're saying is too hypocritical. My family has a decent income, and even in the catering industry, I can't do without meat. Kelly glared angrily at her younger brother, but she couldn't help but laugh. Kelly, are you losing weight? Alan asked tentatively. According to the scale standards before crossing, Kelly is approximately 1.75 meters tall and weighs nearly 120 pounds. The lines look quite symmetrical now, giving off a sense of tall and healthy beauty. However, without control, it will be difficult to maintain body shape when the baby is about to be born. Eating too much meat has made me lose my figure. Damn it. I want to wear a beautiful waist-tied dress to the graduation party. If you really want to lose weight, you need to start by eating less sweets, such as caramel pudding. Alan's kind reminder only received a big white eye. What do you know? Women have 2 stomachs, one of which is specifically used to hold desserts. Forget it, say goodbye to your waistband dress. Stinky kid, could you give it a cold word again? Kelly punched her younger brother. Alan quickly shrank his head and changed to a safe topic. Kelly, did you also participate in the blood awakening test last week? Originally not interested, Luna insisted that I accompany her to the test. I heard that if you test your extraordinary bloodline, you have the opportunity to awaken and become a sorcerer. Have you tested any special bloodline? It's just our family's ancestral ogre bloodline. Unfortunately, it's too rare. The measured blood concentration is only 3%, with inferior qualifications and little future. Kelly answered sullenly. Perhaps due to the influence of the ogre bloodline, Kelly has been possessed of strange powers since childhood, and her figure has developed very early. Her heavy chest seems to be carrying 2 honeydew melons. The boy in the school called her Miss Cow behind her back, but dared not say so to her face, otherwise she would definitely beat her up and leave her teeth searching everywhere. Examining a person's sorcerer talent, the higher the concentration of special bloodlines, the better. Below 1%, there is almost no possibility of awakening. What if the blood concentration reaches 5%? Alan asked his sister. That's not bad, it's considered a standard intermediate qualification. For humans, the concentration of supernatural lineage is 1.3%, which is considered a lower qualification. 4.6% with moderate qualifications. 7.9% with superior qualifications. Usually not exceeding 10%. Otherwise, non-human features can be seen from appearance. Strictly speaking, they no longer belong to true humans. I may also have ogre bloodline, and the concentration is not low, Alan said to his sister calmly. It's not surprising, after all, you've been a glutton since you were young. But what's the point? Even if your blood concentration is higher than mine, there's nothing to be happy about. Kelly mercilessly hit her younger brother. The sorcerer's bloodline also has a distinction between high and low levels, and the ogre's bloodline can only be ranked lower. The spiritual growth is too poor, it's difficult to comprehend spells. To put it simply, he is just a greedy strongman, not a true sorcerer. As a lady, I don't appreciate this kind of barbaric and crude bloodline. Ladies. Alan was surprised. Sister, how could you have such an illusion? Bang. Kelly punched her younger brother on the head. Alan felt as if he had been hit hard on the head, and suddenly felt stars in his eyes. He touched his forehead, and a lump suddenly swelled up. I'm not as idle as you are. I have to help with the kitchen after dinner. Kelly pushed away the plate and angrily turned her head before leaving. Alan touched his stomach as if he hadn't eaten enough yet, so he ate all the leftover food from his sister. Looking at the two empty plates, Alan vaguely felt something was wrong. Eating two nutritious and well-balanced dinners doesn't seem to make you feel full, it's just that you're not hungry. Putting aside this doubt for now, Alan walked into the neighboring kitchen. Kelly is busy with work. The small tavern of the Panther family is just an ordinary couple's shop. Dad is a bartender, managing the storefront business. Mom is in the kitchen, proficient in frying, grilling, cooking, and frying. There was originally a little girl in the store who helped with cooking, responsible for miscellaneous tasks such as selecting vegetables and washing dishes. Not long ago, the little girl had an accident at home and resigned from her job. The store couldn't hire a suitable assistant for a while, so Kelly came over to help in her spare time. Alan occasionally comes to help. Unfortunately, his mother and sister always find him clumsy. Alan came to the kitchen holding the plate and scrubbed it clean. Before his travels, he studied abroad and wanted to eat delicious and inexpensive local cuisine, so he had to buy and cook his own meals. Over time, practicing cooking, washing dishes, and cleaning household chores have all come into play. Kelly was sorting mushrooms when she looked up at her younger brother and praised him with a smile. Not bad. Not bad. The work was done quite quickly and there was progress. Alan wiped his hands and saw his sister pick out a mushroom from a pile and casually throw it into a nearby wooden basin, which made his heart skip a beat. Kelly, is the mushroom you picked out poisonous? Tiger patterned goose paste mushroom looks very ordinary, but it can't be eaten. Kelly picked up a mushroom and showed it to her younger brother. What will happen after eating? I haven't eaten it before. I heard it can cause hallucinations, and seeing many strange things feels like getting drunk. Alan nodded and asked his sister nonchalantly, what should we do with these poisonous mushrooms? Are we feeding pigs? Fool. Even pigs can get poisoned if they eat it. Kelly gave her younger brother a bad look and said, we can only throw it away and pray that the homeless don't dig them out of the trash can and eat them. Understood. Alan picked up the wooden basin and turned towards the trash can. Turn your back to your sister and pretend to pour poisonous mushrooms into the trash can. While Kelly was not paying attention, she secretly left 2 flowers and stuffed them into her pocket. Kelly picked up a basin of washed mushrooms and sent it to her mother on the stove. Alan returned to the restaurant alone, took out a poisonous mushroom from his pocket, and carefully sniffed it. I was hesitating whether to take a small sip, and the system gave me the identification result. Discovered ordinary ingredients, tiger pattern goose paste mushroom. Rich in nutrients and with hallucinogenic effects, level 1 toxin. Alan checked the built.in ingredient catalog of the system and indeed included the entry for tiger-striped goose cream mushroom. Holding the poisonous mushroom, he remembered that the system had given a prompt that consuming poison could accumulate resistance and ultimately increase the level of resistance. I already have a first-order toxin resistance, and if I eat a first-order toxin like tiger-striped goose oyster, theoretically I won't be poisoned, right? With curiosity, Alan bit off a tiny bit of poisonous mushroom. As expected, there was no discomfort at all. The experience bar representing the accumulation level of toxin resistance has slightly increased, but it is still far from reaching level 2 toxin resistance. Alan simply stuffed both poisonous mushrooms into his mouth. The result disappointed him. Poison-resistant strips are surprisingly motionless. It seems that only the first consumption of the same poison can enhance its resistance. Alan pondered and came to a conclusion. New book upload, seeking recommendations. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The King of the Great Stomach. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The King of the Great Stomach. The night is already deep. The diners have all left, and there are only a few drunkards left in the store who are still boasting and farting. Kelly went to the bar and replaced her dad. Mom stir-fried the remaining meat and vegetables with macaroni, filling a large bowl, which was the working meal for the couple. Ellen, do you want some more to eat? Mom asked her son. Good. Alan sat back at the dining table and took a plate of fragrant macaroni handed by his mother. When people eat at home, they don't pay much attention to setting up dishes. Macaroni, the flavor of beef chow fun, was simply fried by my mother. It's delicious. Dad took a sip of his homemade beer and said seriously to his son, Kelly has already told me about the circus. I inquired with a regular customer and found out that the amazing circus had already left town overnight. I heard they boarded a ship at the port. I'm in such a hurry to leave. I'm probably doing something bad and feeling guilty. Mom also joined in, lecturing her son incessantly. In the future, when watching circus, you must have adults with you, otherwise there is really a possibility of being abducted and sold. There are a lot of bad people outside. Last year on Moley Island, 6 children went missing, didn't they? Alan silently listened to his parents' chatter, burying his head in cooking. After finishing a large plate of spaghetti, I looked at the empty plate and was stunned. Why didn't you feel any fullness after eating 2 dinners in a row? Before traveling, his appetite was very average. After crossing over, the original owner of this body, Alan Panthers, was indeed a foodie, eating much more than his peers. But after all, he is only a 12-year-old boy. He has eaten enough food to feed 3 adults, and he feels only 3 to 4 full, which is quite outrageous. He thought of the gluttony system. In the pre-travel world, gluttony refers to an ancient ferocious beast known for its gluttony, which can eat anything and never be full. Perhaps due to the gluttony system, I have become a king of stomachs. There is a more reasonable explanation. The food eaten into the stomach, in addition to maintaining its own physiological needs, the remaining nutrients are probably converted into energy to maintain the operation of the gluttony system. The next day, Alan continued the lifestyle habits he had developed in his past life, getting up at 5:30 in the morning to wash up, tidying up his backpack, and going downstairs to the kitchen. Last night, he had already planned to make full use of the convenience of running a small tavern at home, collect various poisonous mushrooms, and enrich the food catalog. At the back door of the kitchen, my mother is bargaining with the vegetable vendor. Alan walked over calmly, flipping through the fresh vegetables, fruits, and mushrooms in the big basket. The vegetable vendor is not awesome. After collecting such a large basket of fungi, only 2 poisonous mushrooms mixed in. Alan pouted in disappointment, took out 2 poisonous mushrooms, and secretly stuffed them into his pocket. Pop! His mother slapped him on the back, startling him. Don't be naughty, go eat now. Mom said irritably. It's okay, Alan breathed a sigh of relief to himself. Mom didn't notice his little act of collecting poisonous mushrooms. Quickly finishing breakfast, Alan walked out with his backpack on his back. The sky was only dawn, and there was not a single person on the street. Not far from the tavern, there is a dark alley. The dark wall was covered in the vomit of a drunkard. Alan turned into the alley and glanced back. Make sure your parents and sister can't see here. Take out the mushrooms from your pocket, and start trying the less toxic, fly spot mushroom. Level 1 toxin resistance can resist the toxins contained in this mushroom. I took a bite and didn't really feel anything. Looking at the poison resistance bar, it only increased slightly. It's similar to when I ate tiger-striped goose paste mushroom yesterday. Next, Alan tried the more toxic, green mushroom. This type of mushroom turns blue when touched with your hand. After being cooked, the taste is delicious. Eating it raw can cause poisoning, and it is a relatively strong second-order toxin. Chewing a small piece of green mushroom, Alan waited quietly. This time, his poison resistance has finally been broken through. The field of vision gradually became blurred. A colorful glow appeared before my eyes, as if I was observing a strange world through a kaleidoscope, and my consciousness couldn't help but blur. Level 1 toxin resistance cannot completely immunize against level 2 toxins, but it can greatly reduce the harm of toxins. The illusion only lasted for a short minute before regaining consciousness. Damn it! The toxicity is too strong. Alan covered his hot forehead and murmured to himself. Open the system, and a new entry has been added to the ingredient catalog. Green mushroom, level 2 toxicity/hallucinogenic. Looking at the poison resistance bar again, there has been a significant increase. Not bad, not bad. Alan closed the system page with satisfaction. From this perspective, eating a few more level 2 toxins can quickly elevate the resistance to level 2. Unfortunately, eating each poison only once is useless. Ordinary people who consume small amounts of level 2 toxins have a risk of death, which is not so easy to obtain. Casually putting the leftover mushrooms into his pocket, Alan pondered and walked towards the depths of the alley. Passing through this alley, you can take a shortcut to the school. At this moment, a hand suddenly reached out from the alley, holding a damp handkerchief and covering his face involuntarily. Alan was startled and instinctively struggled, but was tightly held down by the attacker, unable to escape for a moment. What's even worse is that the wet handkerchief covering his face emitted a pungent smell, making him feel dizzy, and his consciousness gradually blurred. At this point, a system prompt comes to mind. Detected, Mandarin, level 2 toxin/anesthetic, ... Thanks to his toxin resistance, Alan was not completely unconscious, just dizzy and weak, unable to exert any strength. He squinted his eyes, pretending to be half unconscious, and fell back softly. The kidnappers quickly supported him, half dragging and half supporting, forcing him out of the alley. Taking advantage of the deserted street, quickly walked towards the pier. The anesthesia had not yet dissipated, and Alan was unable to escape the kidnappers' coercion, but his consciousness was still very clear. He smelled a strong smell of perfume from his partner. Is the kidnapper a woman? After about 10 minutes, the woman took Alan to the second floor of a small hotel near the port. Bang! Close the door and the woman releases her hand. Allowing Alan to collapse limply on the floor, his eyes tightly closed, he looked as if he was unconscious. I'm so tired. The woman complained, took off her top hat, took off her windbreaker, and casually hung it on the hanger. Alan observed in secret through his slightly narrowed eyes. The kidnapper is a young woman with a hot figure and a pretty face that looks a bit familiar. After a moment of recollection, Alan remembered. Yesterday at the circus, this woman once performed on stage as a magician's assistant, leaving a deep impression on him due to her revealing attire. Now it seems that this woman is clearly a repeat kidnapper, and her strength is not small, so she should have practiced martial arts. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Kidnapping. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Kidnapping. At this moment, there was a knocking on the door outside. The woman looked out through the keyhole and opened the door. A man walked in. It also looks a bit familiar. Seems to be a clown actor in a circus. Alan is not very sure. After all, during the clown's performance, the makeup was too heavy. Is this the little ghost who ate candy yesterday but didn't get dizzy? The clown asked the woman. So I used double the dosage this time. The woman smiled proudly. Is his qualifications very good? Medium qualification, ogre bloodline. Is that all? It's just average. The clown looked puzzled. The captain made a fuss by asking the two of us to stay for such a dispensable little ghost, right? The group leader was mainly curious. Yesterday afternoon at the circus, why was this little ghost the only one who wasn't captivated and wanted to catch him and personally study it? The woman explained. What a boring curiosity. The clown shrugged and spread his hand. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and buy a boat ticket, and also the largest suitcase that can hold this boy. When I get on the ship, I don't want to look too suspicious. The woman said to the clown, also, please help me order breakfast. You're so verbose. Hey. Listen. Last night in bed, I didn't complain about you demanding too much. Okay, count what I owe you. Not long after the Joker left, breakfast was delivered. Bread and jam, and a steaming bowl of creamy mushroom soup. The woman placed the plate on the table and turned her head into the bathroom. Through the door, Alan heard the sound of splashing water. The toxins in his body have subsided and his body has regained vitality. He quietly stood up, took out the green mushroom from his pocket, and walked to the dining table. When the woman came out of the bathroom, Alan had already returned to her original position, still looking unconscious. The woman didn't notice anything unusual and sat down to eat. Breakfast suits her appetite very well. Especially in that bowl of soup, there are plenty of mushrooms and the taste is very delicious. However, soon after, she felt something was wrong. First, there was a strong dizziness, followed by a hallucination in front of me. It seems like countless glowing little people have grown out of the wall, dancing around her. Damn it. The woman propped herself up, supported the wall, and stumbled towards the door, intending to open it for help. At this moment, a figure emerged from behind her, holding a heavy brass candlestick in her hand. Taking advantage of the female kidnapper being poisoned and unconscious, losing her guard, Alan raised the copper candlestick and exerted all his strength to fiercely smash her back of the head from behind. Bang! With a muffled sound, the woman fell to the ground. A large lump collapsed from the back of the head, and the limbs were still twitching. Alan gritted his teeth, lowered his heart, swung the candlestick, and slammed it hard twice on the back of her head. Bang! Bang! The woman lay on the ground, limp and motionless. The shattered occipital bone gushed out a large amount of blood. Alan put down the candlestick. Take a deep breath. Force yourself to calm down. A trembling hand reached out to the woman's face, confirming that she was not breathing, and a stone in her heart fell to the ground. Quickly searched for the body, found the wallet, dagger, and a small bottle of potion. The system identified it as a white flower mandala extract, containing high concentrations of mandala alkaloids. The handkerchief that the woman had covered his face before, as well as the candy he ate in the circus yesterday, all contained this highly hypnotic toxin. Alan opened the door and was about to go downstairs when he suddenly heard heavy footsteps coming from downstairs. Looking down, the clown was carrying a large suitcase and walking into the hotel. Damn it! Alan quickly returned to the guest room and closed the door. The way downstairs has been blocked, what should I do? He hurried to the window and pushed it open. Under the second-floor window, there is a street. A hotel is different from a residential building, as the first floor is very high. Jumping from the second-floor window, which is over 7 meters high, even if it doesn't hurt your legs and feet, will make a loud noise, causing the clown to be alert. Alan held onto the windowsill, hesitated for a moment, and finally gave up the idea of jumping off the building to escape. He quickly returned to the door, dipped a handkerchief in blood from the woman's body, and applied it to the windowsill. The stairs outside the door creaked. The clown is carrying a suitcase and going upstairs. Alan stuffed the handkerchief back into the body's pocket, quickly turned around, and hid under the bed. Holding the medicine bottle in his left hand and a dagger in his right hand, he held his breath and waited quietly. In the silence, one could only hear their own pounding heartbeat. A knock came from outside the door. No one answered. With a creak, the clown opened the door and walked in. I saw the woman's body at a glance and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. His subsequent reaction fully conforms to the behavioral logic of a criminal. The clown quickly covered his mouth and looked back stealthily. Confirmed that no other tenants were alarmed before closing the door. Quickly walk up to the woman's body and squat down to examine the wound. After a while, he seemed to suddenly realize that the boy the woman had previously tied back was missing. The clown stood up and looked around, only to find the window open. On the windowsill, there is still a glaring stain of blood. The clown's face was gloomy, as if he had guessed something. He quickly walked to the window and looked out with his head. Damn little devil. Have you already jumped out of the window and escaped? The clown lay by the window, murmuring to himself. At this moment, Ellen crawled out of the bed, walked behind him lightly, and stabbed him fiercely. Shwa! A flash of cold light. A sharp dagger pierced deeply into the clown's back. Ah ah! The clown let out a scream, instinctively turned around, flew up and kicked Alan's chest. Bang! Alan was kicked so hard that he stumbled backwards and sat on the bed, feeling stuffy in his chest and having difficulty breathing. This clown is quite skilled in martial arts. Fair play, I am definitely not his opponent. Even if he is stabbed in the back, bleeding profusely, and the clown's face contorted in pain, he still has combat ability. He pulled out his own dagger from his waist and gritted his teeth as he approached, with a fierce gleam in his eyes. Little rabbit. You're doomed. Before he could finish speaking, Alan suddenly raised his left hand. The liquid in the potion bottle splashed onto the clown's face. The clown let out a scream and quickly wiped his face. The wet liquid emitted a familiar odor. Is it? The clown suddenly thought of a possibility, and his heart suddenly became cold. A high-concentration solution of mandolin is inhaled into the body through the nostrils and mouth. In just a few seconds, the clown leaned against the wall and slipped to the ground, his eyes lifeless. Alan threw the candlestick over first. Smashed the dagger from the clown's hand. Seeing that he had no resistance, he had the courage to step forward and put a knife on his neck. Throwing down the dagger, Alan was sweating profusely and his hands were trembling uncontrollably. Staying calm and quietly leaving the hotel. Faye ran home and first told his father the whole story, and then the father and son went to report it together. When the police arrived at the hotel crime scene, both kidnappers were already dead and the floor was covered in blood. Alan stayed at the police station until noon. After recording the confession, he was repeatedly interrogated by the police chief. In the end, he couldn't dig up any valuable clues, so he was sent away in a bad mood. Following his father out of the police station, Alan's mood remained heavy. Those two kidnappers belonged to a criminal gang disguised as a circus, specializing in trafficking children, especially those with sorcerer qualifications, and seemed to be able to sell for higher prices. Kill them both, this matter is not over yet. What if my accomplice comes back to retaliate? Will parents and sisters be implicated? After this storm, Alan deeply realized that the world he lives in now is more dangerous than before. Without the ability to protect oneself, wanting to live a stable life is a luxury. Since I am in a world where sorcerers are revered, and since I have sorcerer ancestry, the most feasible way to become stronger is to try to become a sorcerer. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Schools. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Schools in the afternoon. Alan once again embarked on the road to school. There is an extra dagger and a pack of lime in the backpack. Carrying poisonous mushrooms in my pocket. The experience in the morning left him with a considerable psychological shadow. This time, I deliberately avoided the alleys and chose to walk in crowded places. It's okay. No more accidents occurred and I arrived at school smoothly. The school in the town provides lunch. At this moment, most of the students are still in the cafeteria, and the classroom is very quiet, with only 2 girls whispering. The original owner of this body, Alan Panthers, has entered puberty, but his thoughts are still relatively immature. In the class, they belong to the kind of mischievous bad guys with average grades, and they also make friends with the same type of mischievous guys. These boys hardly pay attention to their female classmates in their daily lives. The reason is that getting along with a little girl is too troublesome, and if you don't pay attention, you will make the other person cry. You have to be meticulous about every little thing, which is annoying. Of course, his older sister is an exception. Kelly is a famous girl in the whole school, big sister. Thinking of these things, Alan now finds it amusing. Looking back on the journey, when I was 12 years old, I had already tasted the taste of first love. If I had the same strong physique and masculine appearance as Alan Panthers before traveling, I could easily show off on the basketball court and not be too easy to pick up girls. Setting aside childish thoughts, Alan opened his backpack and neatly placed the books on the desk. The courses taught in the school mainly include Chinese, arithmetic, geography, history, and martial arts. The first 2 subjects were only equivalent to the level of 4th grade elementary school in his previous life. For someone like him who won a full prize to study abroad for a PhD, it was simply too simple. Geography and history are more like a set of fantasy novels, and Alan is quite interested in reading them. As I was flipping through the book, a faint fragrance wafted from behind. "Alan, why didn't you come to class this morning?" The girl's voice echoed in her ears, sounding unhappy. "You don't have to look back to know it's class monitor Beatrice." The mischievous boy in the class secretly gave this girl a nickname, called Police Dog. Perhaps it was because she enjoys taking care of things and is particularly strict that she was selected as the class monitor. It must be acknowledged that the class monitor is diligent and responsible. Otherwise, a mischievous person like Alan who occasionally misses class for half a day and goes out to explore is not a big deal. Why bother? Alan turned around and looked at the girl in the white dress with a stiff face across from him, smiling slightly. "Good afternoon, class monitor." "Hey." The girl was taken aback, seemingly unaware that this mischievous young man suddenly became polite, and his delicate face showed a bewildered expression. "Well, good afternoon." "Alan, you haven't answered my question yet." "This matter is a long story, starting from yesterday afternoon when we went to the circus to watch a play." Alan gave a brief account of his experiences over the past 2 days. Except for the identity of the traveler and the secrets related to the gluttony system, nothing else has been preserved. Firstly, it is unnecessary. After all, someone has already died and reported a case, which will soon spread throughout the entire town. Secondly, considering that the wider the spread of this case, the more it can inspire local residents to hate child abductors and spontaneously organize to combat such criminal activities. If the circus sends people back to kidnap children, they will most likely not be able to escape the bright eyes of the people, which is equivalent to helping Ellen relieve pressure. These thrilling experiences are vividly narrated by Alan. Beatrice was mesmerized by the sound. In no time, another girl in the classroom also walked over and sat next to Beatrice, curiously listening to his story. 2 young girls sat opposite Ellen, with their hands on their cheeks and elbows propped up on their desks, listening attentively. The boy who came back from dinner couldn't help but marvel at this scene. Alan, this kid. How could he chat so happily with a girl? Damn traitor. He must be expelled from the Iron Fist gang. I'm afraid it won't work. Another boy smiled bitterly. After all, Alan is the leader of our Iron Fist gang. Only the leader has the right to dismiss gang members. That's how things are. Alan finished talking about the cause and effect, showing a half-true and half-false expression of fear. I can escape the kidnapper's poisonous hands, and I really want to thank my ancestors for appearing. In this world where sorcerers are revered, people worship bloodline and ancestors, while religious beliefs are brutally suppressed by major sorcerer families. Believers of both good and evil gods are not allowed to openly preach. So when people express happiness, they always say, "Thank you to the ancestral spirit," instead of "Thank God," and so on. Alan. You're so brave. You're so amazing. The little girl next to Beatrice looked at him with admiration on her face. Killing 2 vicious kidnappers and successfully escaping, it's like a plot from an adventure novel. So, isn't your kid just making up a story? Another girl leaned over to listen to the lively scene, half believing and half doubting. Zuling is here, I'm telling the truth. Alan looked serious. If you don't believe me, you can go to the police station to inquire. Alan is unlikely to lie to us, Beatrice said fairly. Boys like him only brag in front of boys, and bragging to girls will be laughed at by other boys, saying he wants to pursue that girl. It's embarrassing. Alan smiled and nodded. Miss Class Monitor, do you understand the psychology of being a cool boy? Alan, after experiencing this, you need to learn from it, study hard in the future, and don't go to dangerous places to play anymore. Miss Class Monitor, educate delinquent youths seriously. As usual, when she said these clichés, Ellen couldn't bear to hear a single word and turned around to leave. But with the souls of the travelers, they empathize with each other. You're right, Beatrice. In the past, I used to do meaningless and foolish things all day, thinking I was a gang leader and a street hero. It was just too foolish. Alan said seriously. Class Monitor, in the future, I will learn from you, study hard, and do something more valuable to myself and society. Beatrice's eyes overflowed with relief, and her fair and tender face suddenly blushed. Alan. You didn't attend the class this morning, so I lent you the class notes. You must take a good look. Thank you, Class Monitor. I will return it to you before school ends. Don't rush to pay it back. Beatrice looked a bit uneasy. Besides, you haven't had lunch yet, have you? I also have bread and milk, if you don't mind. Thank you very much, Alan calmly reached out. Actually, I only came after lunch, but I think I can have some more. A meager lunch for a little girl, Alan just took 2 or 3 bites and flaunted it into his stomach, feeling like he didn't eat it. The gluttony system truly lives up to its name in terms of gluttony. The girls around had already noticed that the class monitor's attitude towards Alan was unusual, and their gaze towards the two became strange. Alan felt the gaze around him and chuckled to himself. Some innocent and kind-hearted girls are always eager to save delinquent youths, advise the prodigal son to turn back, abandon evil and become good, and gain a great sense of satisfaction and achievement from it. For this, even willing to destroy one's own life, like a moth to the fire. Beatrice also seems to have a bit of a Madonna complex. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Instructor Carter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Instructor Carter. After 2 boring math classes, Alan's favorite physical education class follows. Girls go to the tennis court to show off their youth. The boy was driven into a hellish martial arts training center and subjected to the merciless abuse of Instructor Carter. Alan took a deep breath and pulled the bowstring full. The feather arrow flew out with a swoosh and hit the target 50 meters away. 8 rings. Instructor Carter took out a tin flat teapot from his pocket, avoided the student's sight, secretly took a sip of wine, smacked his lips with satisfaction, and then recorded Alan's grades, along with an evaluation. There is still room for improvement, continue to work hard. Hee. It's up to me next. A short and tough boy with a tuft of yellow hair on his head walked over with a bow. Pretend to be careless, shoot an arrow casually and hit the bullseye. 10 rings. Instructor Carter turned his head and glanced at little yellow hair. Robin, a range of 50 meters is too short for you. Yeah, instructor. I usually practice with my dad at home, and I shoot targets hundreds of meters away. Basically, I only achieve a score of around 9 rings. Little yellow hair pretended to be forced while also humbly winking at Ellen. Hee. Alan walked over with a sneer, pinching the back of his neck like an eagle catching a chick. You're very arrogant, Robin. I'm not as good as you at archery, but when it comes to fighting. Should we go practice on the arena? Well, let's forget it. I admit you're quite skilled in this area. Robin immediately hesitated. This kid is Alan's best friend at school. His dad is a hunter, recognized as a marksman in town, and he's also good at archery. However, Robin's physique is far less robust than Alan's, and he is only a part of being beaten in empty-handed combat. Alan. You didn't come to school this morning, and we thought you were also abducted by the circus. Another boy joined the chat. I didn't come this morning, it's really related to the circus. By the way, Alan briefly recounted his experience once again. Speaking of the thrilling place, the boys around became restless. Some are nervous, some are amazed, and others suspect that he is exaggerating and boasting about himself as a brave and strategic hero. Alan was too lazy to pay attention to the questioning voices and was more concerned about another matter. I heard that 2 senior boys have disappeared from our school. Do you know who they are? Both of them are in 5th grade, Marlowe from Class 1 and Hugo from Class 3, someone replied. Alan nodded thoughtfully. Marlowe and Hugo are both boys in the same grade as Kelly. I heard my sister mention before that both of these boys have been tested for superior sorcerer qualifications and are highly valued by the principal. I heard it was because I ate candy from the circus, fell asleep, and then was caught without my knowledge. Yesterday afternoon, there were at least 200 to 300 students who went to see the circus, and not less than 10 of them won candy in the lottery. Why were only 2 people knocked out? Someone has raised doubts. That's it. Robin took over the conversation. Yesterday I also drew a 3rd prize and ate a lollipop, but I didn't feel dizzy or sleepy. That's because your qualifications are too poor, and the kidnappers don't like you. Behind Robin, suddenly came the voice of Mr. Carter, the martial arts instructor. Instructor, what do you mean by this? Robin asked defiantly. Do you want me to speak more clearly? Carter gave him a faint glance. The gang that abducted children through a circus performance made a move in the lottery box. When you reached into the lottery, you unconsciously took a blood test. The ticket seller will record the test results and give prizes to those children who have the potential to become sorcerers, which is called lollipops. Robin, winning the prize indicates that you have the qualifications of a sorcerer, but your lollipop does not contain any hallucinogens, indicating that your qualifications are only inferior and it is difficult to become a true sorcerer. The truly valuable targets of abduction are children who have tested for intermediate or even superior qualifications. The lollipops given to them as prizes were drugged. Mr. Carter, how did you know all this insider information? Alan asked calmly. The 2 missing boys, Marlowe and Hugo, are the promising candidates for the principal Ms. Sola. Besides, they are still wealthy children, and the situation has escalated. How could I not know? Mr. Carter stroked his mustache and smiled bitterly. The principal and sheriff are both very angry now and are investigating the whereabouts of the circus. The insider information I just mentioned was heard from a police officer friend. So it's like this. Robin scratched his head, his expression a bit complicated. Perhaps I should be grateful for my mediocre talent. By the way, besides Marlowe and Hugo, there's also Ellen, who almost got kidnapped. Robin suddenly thought of something and turned to look at Ellen with envy in his eyes. Based on that, Ellen's sorcerer qualifications are definitely not bad. Instructor Carter also had the same guess and asked Alan, "Have you ever tested your bloodline?" Although Alan had already used the gluttony system to measure his bloodline, he still shook his head. Students studying in this school can have their blood lineage tested for free once a year from the age of 12 to 16, with a focus on examining the types and concentrations of extraordinary blood vessels. These two indicators together determine a person's sorcerer talent. Beyond the age of 16, with a fixed bloodline, there is little hope for further growth. Alan has just turned 12 and has not had his blood tested at school yet. "You'd better go test it, maybe there will be a surprise," Instructor Carter advised. Alan nodded and asked the instructor, "Mr. Carter, are you a sorcerer?" "I'm sorry, I'm just a senior apprentice, not a true sorcerer." The instructor was a bit embarrassed, mainly because my talent is not good enough. I only awakened a kind of Tauren bloodline. Tauren. You know, similar to orcs and ogres, they have all sorts of brute power, but unfortunately their mental power is low and they are not good at magic. Most sorcerer apprentices of the Tauren bloodline are unable to awaken their talent for casting spells and can only settle for second place, majoring in martial arts. Tauren bloodline is actually acceptable. Robin comforted Instructor Carter, whose self-esteem had been hurt. "Our family's ancestral centaur lineage is actually not as good as the Tauren." "Instructor, at least you are a senior apprentice." "My dad is still just a junior apprentice, and he's not as good as you." Alan could hear it. Robin's words may seem self-deprecating on the surface, but they are actually showing off. In the lives of ordinary people, it is difficult to see true sorcerers. The only sorcerer Ellen knows in this small town is the principal Auntie Sola, who is said to be a first-class, natural sorcerer. The mayor is always respectful in front of her. Under sorcerers, elementary apprentices and advanced apprentices already possess special skills that ordinary people cannot achieve, and they do not perform too poorly. For example, Instructor Carter, second only to the principal in terms of status and salary in school, is also the idol in the hearts of boys. Robin's father, Mr. Hunter, is the most famous hunter in the entire town of Quint and the current president of the hunting guild. In contrast, Alan's parents, who run a small tavern, although their business is booming and their families are relatively affluent, they have a considerable reputation among their neighbors, but their social status is not comparable to Carter and Hunter. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Poisonous Bloodline. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 8. Violent Flow Warlock. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Violent Flow Warlock. Perhaps it is because I have been consuming too many toxins recently, which has led to the addition of a fierce poison bloodline. Unfortunately, the concentration is too low. We have not yet reached the threshold for awakening the talent of a sorcerer. But it's okay. As long as you eat more and stronger toxins, one day you will be able to increase the concentration of the fierce poison bloodline. No matter how you look at it, this bloodline has more development potential than the ogre bloodline. At this moment, the sound of pushing the door came from behind. Alan quickly turned back. I saw a petite young woman walking into the garden. The lifespan of a sorcerer is much longer than that of an ordinary person. Ms. Sora, who is almost 30 years old, looks younger than her actual age, like a little girl. Wearing a green long dress, with brown hair curled up in a bun, a pair of rich green eyes resembling jade, displaying a unique fairy bloodline. Alan Panthers. Ms. Sora suddenly stopped and stared at the boy across from her with a surprised expression. Just now, Sheriff Marcus mentioned you, praising your intelligence and boldness. You killed 2 extremely vicious kidnappers alone. Is it true? It's basically true. Alan rubbed his nose, appearing a bit shy. Actually, it's mainly good luck, blessed by the ancestral spirit. Alan, before thanking Zuling, don't you think you should be more grateful to the teachers who trained you? Ms. Sora seemed to smile rather than smile. You're right, Alan replied wisely. I especially want to thank you, esteemed Madam Principal, for nurturing me. Great. You should say the same in front of others in the future. Ms. Sora cautioned. How is the kidnapping investigation going? Alan asked the principal. Not much. Those idiots at the police station only know how to eat dry food and haven't found any valuable clues yet. Ms. Sola waved her hand in anger. 2 wealthy children were abducted, the school was also implicated, and parents complained. However, the child was lost outside of school. What's the matter with our school? It's really unreasonable. The principal and aunt complained for a while before calming down. Alan. You were targeted by the kidnappers, not by chance, it's very likely because you have sorcerer talent. Others also say the same, so I'll test my bloodline. Alan followed the principal's aunt into the office. Ms. Sora opened the drawer, skillfully took out the blood collection needle, pricked his middle finger, and then applied the blood onto a test paper. Wait for a moment. The test paper presents a complex chromatography. Ms. Sola glanced at her and murmured to herself. The ogre bloodline. Ha! There seems to be something else. It's a bit interesting. She turned around and ran to the bookshelf, took out a half-foot thick sheepskin book, and placed it on her desk to flip through. Sometimes compare the chromatography on the test paper. Alan walked around to the side of his desk and looked down at the cover. The title of the book seems to be Dictionary of Genealogy. After searching for a while, Miss Sora was still unsure and had to close the dictionary and smile at Ellen. The test results are good. In addition to the moderate ogre bloodline talent, it also detected some kind of toxin resistance. That's right. This must be some special bloodline with toxin resistance. Ms. Sora nodded, as if trying to persuade herself. Alan pretended to be surprised. But in my heart, I was roast that it was okay to mistake toxin resistance for a kind of blood, but I didn't detect 2 kinds of blood talents, namely, animalized human and ferocious poison. It can be seen from this that the blood testing method used by the principal and aunt has low accuracy and is far inferior to the Taotie system. The bloodline of ogres is not of high grade, but you have toxin resistance, which is very rare and worth focusing on cultivation. The principal's aunt looked at Alan with a smile, her eyes showing a hint of kindness. As usual, students of Alan's class would not have been favored by her. However, this is not as it used to be. The 2 best qualified boys in school, Marlowe and Hugo, were both kidnapped by damn human traffickers. Being a general among the dwarves doesn't make Alan appear particularly outstanding. Alan, you have the opportunity to awaken the sorcerer's bloodline. Now I will tell you some common knowledge about sorcerers. Just like what you learned in the history class. Our world originally had gods. Later, wars broke out between the gods and the sorcerer's ancestors. Our ancestors defeated and sealed the gods, and since then, our world has revered sorcerers and prioritized bloodline. In order to gain stronger power, sorcerers use various means to enhance the purity of their bloodline, promote bloodline evolution, such as blood and flesh transplantation, and intermarriage. The principal's aunt glanced at Alan and hesitated to speak. This kid's silly and cute expression made her burst into laughter. You're still young, don't worry about these things now. You will understand the issue of bloodline inheritance when you grow up a bit more. Now, let me talk about the level division of sorcerers. After the first awakening of your bloodline, you will become a sorcerer apprentice. Apprentices are divided into 2 stages. Elementary, and advanced. Each stage of advancement will strengthen your physical and mental abilities, extend your lifespan, and have a certain chance of awakening 0-ring spells, commonly known as magic. The specific awakening spell depends on your bloodline. Above the apprentices, there are formal sorcerers, divided into levels 1 to 9. At the corresponding level, they have the opportunity to awaken corresponding level spells or special abilities closely related to their bloodline. Each sorcerer level, similar to an apprentice, can also be subdivided into early and late. After taking a sip of tea, the principal's aunt continued. There are 3 main classification methods for sorcerer bloodline. The first category is divided by race, such as Dragon Warlock, Demon Warlock, and Fairy Warlock. The second category is divided according to energy or element types, such as Fire Sorcerers, Ice Sorcerers, and Light Sorcerers. The last category is divided according to laws and regulations, such as Time Sorcerers, Space Sorcerers, and Nature Sorcerers. Ms. Sora, what type of sorcerer does my ogre bloodline belong to? Alan asked curiously. Ogres usually lack the ability to cast spells and cannot be classified based on the type of magical energy. The principal's aunt let out a deep sigh. According to race classification, the ogre bloodline belongs to the subspecies of giants, and after awakening, they become giant sorcerers. However, there are too many types of giants, and the differences between them are huge, so this classification method cannot be accurately described. So a more appropriate way is to divide according to the rules. The ogre bloodline is the called violent sorcerer. Violent warlock. Alan tugged at the corner of his mouth. It sounds very aggressive. If you take a closer look, you will know that this is not a good thing. It is not difficult to imagine that a sorcerer who has fallen to the level of being labeled as violent has a great talent for casting spells. Imagine the reverence of ogres. Fat head and big ears, big arms and round waist. Carrying a big stick, with an iron and silly appearance. Are you saying that this guy is good at casting spells and not scientific? Alan was not particularly disappointed. In addition to his obvious ogre bloodline, he also has a hidden talent for fierce poison, a powerful, gluttonous system, and the innate advantage of a transmigrator. As long as you don't die, your future will surely be bright. The new book has been signed, please collect and recommend it. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Missing Girl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Missing Girl. The principal aunt opened the drawer, took out a box of injections, and handed it to Alan. Take this injection back and inject it first, and you will awaken the cultivation method of the sorcerer apprentice, called Return to Ancestral Meditation. First, practice on your own. If there's anything you don't understand, then ask me. During meditation, sorcerers will forget their external objects and enter a mysterious mental state. It's as if I have become an ancestral creature corresponding to my bloodline, born and growing, striving for survival, gradually growing, acquiring various skills, and reaching the peak of my life. Through meditation, awaken the dormant ancestral memories in the bloodline. This is what is called ancestral meditation. Mainstream sorcerers practice in a similar way, but the specific meditation methods they use also vary in level. The entry-level meditation idea that Ms. Sora gave Ellen only applies to the apprenticeship stage. In fact, she only received the first-level meditation idea herself, because her talent was limited and she was unable to advance to the second-level sorcerer, so she did not have the opportunity to access higher-level cultivation methods. Alan accepted the injection and expressed gratitude to the principal and aunt. Continuing the conversation, she made an unexpected request. Ms. Sora, I would like to raise some flowers and plants at home. Can I ask you for some tips on flower cultivation? Of course, not a problem. The little boy fell in love with him, and the principal and aunt were very happy. Alan observed her expression and slowly spoke of his true purpose. Also, I really like the white flowers like hydrangeas you planted in the garden. I want to transplant a pot and raise it at home. The principal's aunt immediately put away her smile and her expression became unusually serious. That's the condensed spirit flower, which can be used to refine incense that promotes meditation efficiency, but the leaves contain deadly toxins and are not suitable for ordinary people to raise at home. It's too dangerous. Realizing Alan's disappointment, the principal's aunt couldn't help but soften her heart. After hesitating for a moment, the tone softened. If you are interested, you can come to my greenhouse in the future to admire the concentrated flowers and learn the skills of plant cultivation and refining pesticides. Ms. Sola, you have such a kind heart. Alan was grateful and thanked, with a pure smile. With the permission of the principal and aunt, it is convenient to enter this glass garden and collect plants containing toxins to enhance toxin resistance. After school, Alan saw his sister Kelly as soon as he walked out of the school gate. From school to school, let's go together. Kelly told her younger brother with a serious expression on her face. Alan couldn't refuse the close bodyguard and shrugged helplessly. I heard you killed 2 people. Kelly chased her younger brother and asked. 2 thugs who specialize in kidnapping children. I didn't originally intend to kill them, Alan told the truth. At that time, my mind was full of thoughts of escaping, and I accidentally hit them too hard. Looking back on the thrilling experience of the morning, I still have lingering palpitations. Don't go to the pier in the future, it's too chaotic, Kelly warned. The siblings returned home. During lunch, Kelly and her mother talked about the hottest topic of the moment, the case of child abduction in a circus. The 2 missing boys, Marlowe, the son of a trader, and Hugo, the nephew of the mayor, are both influential figures in the school, Kelly said to her mother and brother. Actually, there is another girl who has also disappeared, but she can't afford her tuition and has never attended school. It's normal for you not to know. The mother continued her daughter's conversation and sighed sympathetically. The other children spent money to go to the circus to watch a play, while Sonia went to work to earn money, but she also went missing. Perhaps she took the initiative to follow the circus, at least she could make a living, Kelly guessed. Sonia, the girl mentioned by the mother and daughter, is the same age as Ellen. Sonia's father, Mr. Malmaladov, was originally a small civil servant in the town. Sonia's mother came from a poor background and was quite beautiful. The daughter inherited her mother's excellent genes and was originally a beautiful embryo. Unfortunately, at birth, there is a crimson birthmark on the face, as if a piece of the skin has been peeled off, revealing bloody flesh and muscles. Although Sonia's face is not very good, her parents still love her very much and treat her as a treasure. Before Sonia turned 7, a family of 3 lived a simple and happy life. However, fate played a trick. One day 5 years ago, a sorcerer passed by Port Quint. While waiting for the boat at the dock, I accidentally saw a young woman bringing her daughter to buy fish. Realizing that the young woman was quite attractive and had a hot figure, she immediately had a wicked idea. The sorcerer casually snapped his finger and cast a spell on the young woman. Sonia's mother, enchanted by magic. Leaving her daughter in a daze, she followed the lecherous sorcerer and boarded the ship. Sonia was crying on the dock, begging her mother to come back. However, her mother was enchanted and had lost her consciousness, turning a deaf ear to her daughter's cries. Sonia tried to board the ship and pull her mother back. The sorcerer frowned. No need to command a word. Immediately, a guard rushed forward and slapped the little girl hard, causing her to bleed at the corner of her mouth. Then, like throwing garbage, I threw poor little Sonia out. Sonia woke up from her coma and the ship had already left the harbor. Even if she cried her throat out and called out to her mother countless times, it was impossible to salvage this tragedy. People come and go on the dock. So many people are watching. Did the onlookers lack sympathy and a sense of justice, and no one stepped forward to stop this atrocity in broad daylight? Are you joking? That's the sorcerer master with extraordinary power. Who dares to fight for justice? Anger the sorcerer master. If he says he'll kill your whole family, then he'll kill your whole family. You don't even need to blink your eyes. Sonia cried alone and went home, telling her father about her mother's experience. Mr. Malmaladov was unable to regain his wife, could not withstand the blow, and suffered a mental breakdown. He quickly degenerated into a useless person who could only rely on alcohol to anesthetize himself, and thus lost his once respectable job. A once happy small-town family was completely destroyed by the whim of a passing sorcerer. From then on, Sonia seemed to live in hell. Her alcoholic father would go crazy when he got drunk and hit her. Blame her as an ugly monster and an unfilial daughter. Just because my young daughter refuses to go out to pick up customers and earn money, she buys wine for herself. Last winter, there was a heavy snowfall. When the weather was at its coldest, Malmolative dragged his daughter, who was only wearing a tattered single coat, out of the house, pushed her down on the snow, and went crazy beating and scolding. He has red eyes like a bull, and his mouth is filled with the smell of alcohol. But the old neighbors all knew in their hearts that this bastard was not actually completely drunk. The reason why Sonia abused her daughter in public on the street, causing her poor nose and swollen face, was to show people her cruelty in daughter's tragedy. Stimulate people's sympathy in this way and attract others to come and persuade them to fight. Then he had the opportunity to complain and cry for poverty. Others, for Sonia's sake, have to give some money so that he can quickly roll into the tavern and get drunk, so as not to have any extra energy to abuse his poor daughter. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Homecoming Meditation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Homecoming Meditation. Malmolative always uses this despicable method to beg in disguise. Twice at a time is okay. Over time, the neighbors have become annoyed and their hearts have become cold. Every household tightly closed their doors and windows, hardened their hearts, and ignored Sonia's cries. If there are no kind-hearted people coming forward, that crazy drunkard may kill his daughter alive. Sonia seemed to be aware of this, and for the first time in her life, she rebelled against misfortune. Before being killed, she exerted all her strength to push away her alcoholic father and ran barefoot on the snow. When passing by the tavern, I accidentally fell and was covered in mud and snow, like a stray dog. Alan's parents couldn't bear to see her so pitiful. Just open the door and pull Sonia in, taking in the little girl. Sonia has a scary face and can't be a waitress running around, so she works in the kitchen. This girl is clever and hardworking. Since then, her alcoholic father has always been running to the tavern and causing trouble. If he doesn't have money to buy alcohol, he says he will use his daughter's wages to offset the debt. Sonia felt that this would not work, so she voluntarily resigned from her job as a kitchen assistant. In the blink of an eye, this spring, Sonia's alcoholic father finally died. The abandoned orphan girl, helpless, was kicked out by the landlord. For a long time after that, Alan never saw Sonia again. I don't know how this poor little girl survived. Until that day at the circus, when he saw Sonia sitting in the ticket seller's seat, he felt a bit surprised. Sonia was also surprised when she saw him, and thoughtfully reminded him to go home early to avoid worrying his parents and sister. At that time, Alan only felt that Sonia was verbose and didn't take her words seriously. Looking back now, I suddenly realized that Sonia seemed to be implying something. 3 teenagers took lollipops mixed with hallucinogens. Why is Alan the only one who can persist in running home after the poison outbreak? He used to think it was his good luck or good physique. However, looking back on Sonia's subtle expression at the time, Alan couldn't help but make a bold guess. Sonia actually knew there was a problem with the circus long ago. She also knew that the lollipop she sent to Ellen was mixed with sleeping pills. With her humble identity, she dared not and could not openly remind Ellen that she was in danger. After realizing that the suggestion was ineffective, the only way she could save the boy next door was to give him a lollipop with a relatively low concentration of hallucinogenic drugs. Only in this situation, if Alan is not deeply poisoned, can he possibly stay at home and fall asleep. The more I think about it, the more I feel like this is happening. Alan couldn't help but feel mixed emotions. I am grateful to that skinny little girl. Unfortunately, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to meet again in the future, let alone repay her kindness. Ellen. Kelly said you tested your bloodline, with moderate qualifications, not bad. You are truly my good son. Mrs. Panther's chubby cheeks blossomed with joy. Taking the empty plate handed to him by his son, he filled it with a delicious plate of tomato beef stewed rice, and his gaze towards his son was filled with love. Eat more, Ellen. It's time for you to grow your body now, you can't go hungry. Mom. Alan has eaten enough already, and you're not afraid he'll grow into a big fat man. Kelly said angrily. What's wrong with gaining a little weight? Mom smiled nonchalantly, our family is rich in fat people. Your father, grandfather, and grandfather are all handsome and chubby. Your grandmother is also a tall and sturdy fat woman, just like me, she is more agile in her work than men. Hee hee. Kelly sneered indifferently. Mom is right, all the women in the Panther's family have inherited genes for weight gain. Alan deliberately stimulated his sister. Kelly, stop struggling. Obey fate's arrangement and become a chubby girl. This is the fate of the ogre bloodline. Damn it. What's so proud of the ogre bloodline? Kelly couldn't bear it anymore and reached out to vigorously pinch her younger brother's cheek. Stinky little devil. Sooner or later, you will also become a greedy and chubby person. You may even become a violent maniac. Let's see. Seeing her daughter push away the plate, Mrs. Panthers quickly shouted, Kelly. Your dinner hasn't finished yet. I'm already full of gas, let's give Alan the rest to eat. Watching his sister go upstairs without looking back, Ellen touched her belly and brought over the remaining half of the stewed rice without any guilt. He snored heavily and cleaned it up. I have already eaten a meal for 3 people, although I haven't felt full yet, it's not appropriate to eat again. It inevitably causes mother's concern that he eats too much and has indigestion. Pretending to be very supportive, Alan supported the stairs and returned to his bedroom. Lock the door, sit at the desk, and open the medicine given by the principal and aunt. Sorcerer inheritance, not leaving behind words, completely relying on bloodline imprints. So, the meditation method practiced by sorcerers is not written in books, but exists in the form of potions. Take it or inject it directly, and there is a certain probability that it will awaken the corresponding martial arts and even magic. Alan injected the injection and closed his eyes in contemplation. Not long after, many wonderful ideas emerge from the mind. These ideas are intermittent and somewhat messy. Alan must organize, categorize, and organize himself into a logically coherent cultivation method. How to say it? It feels like organizing a large number of relevant literature on a scientific research topic, and sorting out a review article from it. Even at the apprentice level, it is not easy to fully understand the ancestral meditation idea. So the principal's aunt repeatedly reminded her not to practice blindly in areas where she was unsure, and to seek her advice at any time. But today is not as it used to be. Integrating the soul of the traveler, thanks to the experience accumulated from studying and researching in his past life, reading a vast amount of literature, and with an 18-point spiritual attribute assist, Alan spent an hour pondering and comprehending this secret method. We can start now. Alan closed his eyes. Follow the tutorial instructions and remain calm. Enter a meditative state of forgetting both things and me. In the dark, he seemed to see a vast Milky Way. Countless stars are spinning before my eyes. This galaxy, formed by the convergence of spirits, belongs to the world of the dead. Sealed with dead memories. This long river of memory is divided into countless branches according to its bloodline lineage. The key to opening a branch is the corresponding bloodline. This way of cultivation inevitably reminds Alan of a classic game from his past life. Assassin's Creed. Countless bright or dim stars correspond to the memory fragments of all deceased individuals who are close to Alan's bloodline. That is the so-called ancestral spirit. Ancestral spirits may not always leave descendants, but they will definitely leave souls. Even if one dies young at birth, the soul will enter the bloodline galaxy and become a cultivation resource for distant relatives in later generations. This type of short-lived ghost corresponds to dim stars and usually has weaker strength. Those brighter stars, representing ancestral spirits, usually live longer. Accumulated more survival experience and relatively strong strength. Unfortunately, Alan's apprentice-level meditation cannot choose his own ancestral spirit. When he had the idea of merging the ancestral spirit in the Milky Way of blood, a star will randomly float out and imprint on the forehead. Boom! At the moment of merging the memories of the ancestral spirit, it was as if thunder was exploding in my mind. Alan felt a wave of dizziness. When he regained consciousness, he realized that he had transformed into a newborn baby. To be precise, it's a young ogre who hasn't weaned yet. Yellow skin, wrinkled and wrinkled. There is not a single hair on my body. Lying in the cave covered with dirty straw. The cold wind blew in from the entrance of the cave and couldn't help but shiver. The sound of snoring came from all around. Alan tried to open his eyes wide and looked around. Ogres are born with dark vision. In the dimly lit cave, it was clear to see 6 little creatures on the haystack, all young ogres. End of this chapter.